Szechuan peppercorns are easily one of my favorite ingredients. I can use them in many different ways, and depending on how much I use, I can really adjust the flavors and becomes really, really dynamic. Now these Szechuan peppercorns, you see, have a little bit of sticks and stems in them. That's okay, we're gonna grind those up. And the seeds have been removed and you just see the red husks. The flavor of Szechuan peppercorns have a very long finish, meaning the flavor lasts long in your mouth. I'm gonna use my trusty mortar and pestle. This is one of my favorite tools to use. I like to grind stuff up and bash away at it. I'm gonna add equal parts Szechuan peppercorns and black peppercorns. And you see how those look different and they don't have any twigs at all. 1 to 1. Beautiful. You want to get this going gently at first so they don't go flying all over the place. So I want to give these a rough crack. I don't want to grind it up. And I like to use the mortar and pestle because I can really control the amount of grind that I'm getting. Throw that on my board. So you'll see a nice mix of grind. There's little fine dust like this, and there's little bits of peppercorn still flying around. We want that mix. Look at those. This is a beautiful strip loin. I go to my butcher and I ask for an 8 to 10 ounce piece of strip loin. I want a piece of meat that's bright red, has a nice amount of marbling. I like to keep some of the fat cap on my strip loin because it adds a lot of flavor. At the restaurants, I like to leave a little strip down the center for presentation. And these two are gonna go directly into our spice mix. Classically, you pack a lot of peppercorns onto a steak. But if you don't like so much spice, you can just gently pack it like this, and then you get a little bit of crusting, and you can kind of just rub that in. For me, I like to go crazy with it and really pack it on. So I'm gonna let these rest for about 10 minutes or so to let them come up to room temperature so they cook nice and evenly and I get the perfect doneness. Not only are sweet potatoes superfoods, right up there with blueberries and avocados, but they taste amazing. So I want to make sure I peel all of the skin off the sweet potato, because for this recipe, it's inedible. Trim off the tops and the tails, because we want nice, flat surfaces. Nice. I want to cut my sweet potatoes about 3/4 of an inch, but if I'm in a rush, I can speed it up by slicing them a little thinner. Against that steak, this is gonna look fantastic. And transfer these to a tray. I wanna make sure I coat these evenly with a little bit of oil. I'm using vegetable oil because it's not gonna impart any flavor onto my sweet potato. A little bit of salt. Get in there with my hands. I wanna make sure I get every surface of the sweet potato coated with oil and some salt. I've preheated my grill to a nice high heat. So when I drop my potatoes on here, that's what I want to hear. It's gonna add beautiful color and texture, but also a great flavor. And the sugar from my sweet potato is gonna start coming out and accentuate that char. Nice. I'm gonna let those hang out. I'm gonna make a Szechuan peppercorn glaze. Why is this a glaze? Well, it's gonna be going over top of my sweet potato and glazing them, funnily enough. I want to start by melting some butter. I have a medium heat, and I want this to melt very gently. I want about a tablespoon or so of Szechuan peppercorns, and I want to grind this up fairly fine. I don't want little bites or chunks of the husks. I just want the flavor in the butter. Let this melt into our butter. I like to smash my garlic so it's easy to get into it. Okay, Get rid of all those bits. I don't need this nub at the end. Chop. I don't want to be too picky about this. It's okay to get little bites of garlic, but the larger pieces have got to be broken down. I'm going to bump this up with a little bit of brown sugar. Brown sugar, maple syrup, all very natural combinations that go with sweet potato. A few tablespoons of this not only will help with the color, but with the flavor. Want to make sure this totally dissolves into there. Sometimes brown sugar has little clumps, just bash away at it. Beautiful. Let's check on our potatoes. Nice. Getting some nice grill marks on there. Has a wonderful aroma, a little bit of a char, and the sweetness is really starting to come out. Check on my glaze. Szechuan peppercorns are really flying through my mouth. The sweetness, perfect thread. Get this off the heat, it's perfectly melted. Check on my sweet potato. Beautiful. With my glaze, make sure it's completely smooth so that the butter is not split. I'm just gonna spoon this over, start. Beautiful. Look at that. Make sure I'm coating it evenly. Just gonna finish this up with a brush. Slightly brush it. So all my sweet potatoes are coated with that butter. I like to use butter over margarine, always. It's natural and has great flavor. I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees, and I want this to cook for 20 to 25 minutes. My steak and potato dinner is almost there, but not complete until I finish my cream spinach.
Let's do it!
My steaks are at room temperature. I want to season them. I've preheated a cast iron pan. That way, when I put the steaks in, the temperature doesn't drop. Cast iron holds heat really, really well. I'm seasoning my meat now. I didn't want to add it before I crusted the steak, or else the salt will draw all the moisture out of the meat. A little bit of oil in my pan. Not too much. Gonna give this a little bit of a movement so our oil coats evenly on the pan. You always want to put meat or fish in a pan away from you. That way oil can't splatter on you. We want this to sear to get a nice crust. Perfect complement to steak is cream spinach. Parents have a hard time getting their kids to eat vegetables, but with my cream spinach, tarragon, and peppers, it's a win. It's gonna be so easy and fast. Just a rough chop. Excellent. And I want to dice my sweet pepper, or this red pepper, similar size as this. It's a little tricky getting into these peppers, but I'm gonna show you a nice, simple way. Just find the flat side, trim it down. There's a little bit of membrane on the inside. Press with your knife and peel that away. And it makes it really easy to cut. Let's get this into our oil. Want to check my crust? Oh, look at that. The steak smells fantastic. The aroma and the crust is nice and brown, and all the peppercorns are packed onto it. Want to get this into our oven.